We are going to begin our work session at 5:30.
Perfect. I'll start it and then we'll get it going from there. Tonight, we're gonna present some of the data and processes we're undertaking to kind of manage the current crisis surrounding labor. It was interesting, but as I was sitting at my computer this afternoon, Washington County Sheriff sent a flash alert. And the flash alert was around, they're gonna have to start changing the jail procedures, schedules, because they don't have staff. And so they encouraged people to, if you want a career in the sheriff's office,
Please call.
get involved. So again, it was timely, just it's not exactly related to us, but kind of related to us. Tonight, what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody knows what the issue is. And then for us to kind of talk through, we've got principals who are dealing with this every day, 6 a.m., trying to fill spots. And so you've got folks who are dealing with it right now. And then we'll sit down and have some time to collaborate and talk about kind of next steps. Like, are there ideas that we want to begin to work on and move forward? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John to begin to kind of talk us through the HR part of this. And then we'll have Kim talk for a little while around kind of special education or student services and some of the impacts that they're seeing there.
Okay, thank you. So we, as you know, continue to have challenges hiring and finding staff, like Jake said, both classified and licensed. But tonight's presentation is primarily focused on classified staff. So the next slide, we filled all but one of our current teaching positions. We just had one resign right before summer break. And other than that, we have all of them filled. We also had only one instructional assistant position to fill at the start of the school year. We were all filled up. But the ongoing challenge is new positions being added. As more grant monies come in, other funding source, as well as student identifications where they need some additional supports, we have to provide additional positions. So that's the ongoing challenge. We also have experienced resignations, and I'll be going into that a little bit deeper. So steps we've taken so far in terms of recruiting and hiring. We instituted an extensive year-round sub-recruiting campaign through FGSD. We have advertisements ongoing, tailored to our community. And those include the yard signs. It's like the for sale realtor signs. We put them all throughout the city, as well as at every school site, multiple entrances, as well as here at the district office. Banners at every school, in front of every school. Bi-weekly in-person sub signups sessions with an EDGE staff representative walking potential candidates through the process, answering their questions with Chromebook in their hand and answering so that they can get signed up. We even had pretty brief TV spots. We can't buy a full half minute, but it's like 15 seconds. Gotta look quick, but they put that throughout the local channels as well. We even had a billboard in Hillsborough, very intentionally, advertising our open positions in the Forest Grove School District and asking individuals to apply. Our open positions for classified as well as our permanent positions district are now all linked to Indeed. So anything we post on Talent Ed is also being linked to Indeed. Flyers with real-time QR codes that they take a picture on their cell phone and they are taken right to the application itself. YouTube campaign. Apparently that's been pretty intensive. And then also what has been most effective is recruiting by word of mouth. Teachers, principals, assistant principals, secretaries, going to the parent volunteers that are always in their building and saying, hey, have you thought of being an instructional assistant or a teacher? And that has helped us significantly in terms of recruiting. We also created, as you know, the new district HQ assessment, ODE gave districts that latitude. We used to use the work keys assessment. Work keys is written at 10th, 11th grade level. And that was a real barrier. We had 47% approximately of the staff taking that passed the assessment. We didn't need that. When we're looking at, for instance, our instructional aid, we're looking at 4th, 5th grade level. So we wrote our own local assessment and it's been very, very successful. We've had higher than 80% passing rate on that. And we can turn it around really quick. And we also added a writing reform. So the impact in terms of our subpool, these efforts, when you take a look, on paper, like I shared with the board, on our old subsystem through the Northwest ESD, there was a lot more on paper. But when we did the analysis, how many actually sub in a licensed position, a classified position, it was only 63 of those, in that subpool. Right now, 3 months in, we're up to 92 out of the subpools that we're sharing with you. And the current subpools, as of last week, secretarial, we have 25 individuals ready to go. They passed everything, they're in the subpool. And one was added last week, the week before Thanksgiving break. Classified, we're up to 74, 5 more. So you can see the impact of these ongoing throughout the year recruiting efforts. And then licensed staff, 117, 8 more added the last week. So all those adds are not in that 92 yet. But those are some of the things that we're looking at.
John, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
So on that, when you say in the current subpool, what does that mean? Because in my experience, it's been a subpool for Washington County.
Right. Great question. We have our own district
Okay.
subpool
Okay.
with EduStaff.
Okay.
And the challenge is, we have access to a list of our licensed staff. When I look at the licensed staff, every one on our pool is also signed up for 5, 6,
Okay.
7
Okay.
other
Okay,
pools,
got it.
but they're only counted for us once.
Yeah.
But we're competing
Yeah.
with our neighbors and neighboring districts for those positions.
Okay,
Great question.
while we're
Yes.
still talking, so out of the 217 that we have in the current subpool, only 92 are active.
Yes, they've accepted a position so far this year in the 3 months.
So 130 or so have not accepted a single position.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I ask if
Sure.
EduStaff give you data on the reasons for that? Do they
Um,
kind of survey to be able to remain in EduStaff? Why?
Yes, they don't, it's more anecdotal through the registration process. And I'll get into this a little bit later, but I've had extensive conversations with the HR directors from Tiger to Beaverton, Hillsborough, Sherwood, and then our data. The challenge that we're seeing is totally different, is people want to work 2 or 3 days a week. They don't want a full-time job. And what they varies week to week. I might want to work Monday and Tuesday this week, but next week I want to work Wednesday and Friday. And that's the real challenge that we're facing. So, and then we have another challenge here. Go ahead and go to the next one, Enrique. Thank you. We have leaves. OFLA, FEMLA, we've always had, but there's a new one, ORPFML leave. That's the new state leave. And we've already felt the impact. I want to share this with the board. 56, this is last year, we had 56 classified and licensed leaves all year last year, plus 10 intermittent leaves for a total of 66. Intermittent means I want to take every Friday or every Friday and Monday for my parental leave. Does that make sense? Or I'm going through chemo and I'm going to go ahead and take these 3 weeks off after my treatment, these 3 weeks off that is the example of what you meant. All year, we had 66 leaves. We're only in 3 months and we have 46 leaves already. That's 70% of last year's leaves. Also, people are able to combine these protected leaves. So under the right circumstances, an individual can be out for 36 weeks or 9 months, depending upon what kind of family circumstances they have. And so I just wanted to share, this is also coming.
I do just want to mention that these are legal leads.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're part of the contract and also part of the state law, but it's having an impact. And that's the part that we want to kind of bring out, yeah.
Thank you. And then, so attempts to meet the needs, we were looking at this going, okay, we were really struggling, myself and the principals and secretaries at the beginning of the year. We didn't have permanent subs through FGSD, and we reached out and said, okay, this is killing us. What can we do to get a little bit more consistency? So we recruited from about September 15th all the way up. Well, we're still recruiting now. We have 11 building subs, 2 at the high school because of the sheer number of licensed positions, and 1 at each level after that. To date, we are fortunate to have everyone staffed except 2. 1, Harvey Clark. They have not been able to recruit a licensed staff. And the good thing is they have a student teacher. And that student teacher ends in after winter break. And they committed to being the EduStaff licensed sub for Harvey Clark. We're still looking for Echo Shaw. And there's going to be a comment coming up here. But we've also instituted with the permanent building sub a higher rate of pay. So classified, they are $15.69 per hour regularly in our sub pool. If they commit to being our permanent building sub, they get a $2.67 per hour raise. So they're paid at a higher rate, a 17% increase. Teachers, it's $2.06 regular sub rate. But if they commit to one of these permanent building subs, it's $242.76, also 17% increase, or $36 more per day. And we've also had to go out and, again, word of mouth. Arturo, Karen, Dave Parker, ran into former administrators from a nearby district and that are retired that have to live in Forest Grove, and we're able to hire them. But challenges for classified, we have a really good 2 grow your own programs, and it's being very effective. And we're hiring for open teaching positions. Also, the open substitute positions, we have 2 teaching positions and 9 open classified positions. We only have filled 2 to date. Both of the classified open permanent building sub positions with the higher rate were recruited by word of mouth. The building principals and the secretary spoke with parent volunteers and said, you're here every day volunteering, we could really use you in terms of a permanent building sub. Now, another thing I also want to say is candidates don't, the vast majority, and they've spoken with all of them, the candidates in our sub pools don't want full-time positions. Like I said, they prefer to work 2 to 3 days a week, and they want to be able to choose what assignments or for what teachers they are willing to sub for. So that's also at work. But here's our classified exit slips for this year. We've had more than 9. One more we take. There we go. We've had more than 9, but with Leticia Gutierrez, she's chasing them down, saying, hey, I need you to do this exit slip. I need you to do this exit slip. I need you to do this exit slip. So we got 9 so far this year. But there's some positive and then there's some challenges. Would you consider working for Forest Grove School District again? 8 out of 9 said yes. Would you recommend working in our school district? 8 out of 9 said yes. Reasons for leaving: salary, 5 of the 9. Retirement, they retired. Returning to school to be a teacher was one of the 9, and then family considerations, one of the 9. So we're trying to get a handle on why are they resigning.
So what's the salary in the other districts close to us for the classified sub?
They're similar to us. It varies school by school.
I think you'll find though that Beaverton and Hillsborough are higher.
A couple dollars or,
What's that?
are they a couple dollars an hour higher or like how much are we talking about?
I would say in the dollars. I'd have to look to actually be
Well, I'm just
specific.
curious, I mean, when you're saying the salary, the reason for leaving 5 out of 9, we get to know what that amount is.
But they're not going to other school districts.
I can answer
They're going
that.
to jobs.
From my limited research, looking at salary schedules in the larger districts, they differentiate pay based on the type of job they do.
Oh, great.
So, if you're working in a specialized classroom, you're making more than someone that's working as a recess IA.
Okay.
So every day,
So,
our day.
Just to make sure, again, just some more information, we are working with ESD to do salary studies at both the licensed, classified, and administrative levels, so that when we come into this spring to do negotiations, we should have those comparators. So we can look at and say, where are we at, where do we want to be? Just information.
So I just, to follow up to what Kim said, so we don't differentiate here.
That would have to be a bargaining.
Right? It's interesting.
I don't know where it, if it says it on there. We've had a few people move into like other positions within the district from classified, so there's some of that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so teaching positions.
Right.
We've done a really good job. Again, that's that grow your own. But we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, basically. So the next slide, this is the daily routine to fill vacancies. Principals or secretaries text me early in the morning. I start looking at site vacancies throughout the district and say, okay, where are we at with our permanent building subs? Who isn't assigned yet? And where can I move them? And then we're texting back and forth. And that's if there are no vacancies at their assigned site. So Summers permanent building site, if she doesn't have a vacancy and, or she has vacancies and people in our subpool pick up all of her vacancies, I reassign them to another school early in the morning. Principals also have a tremendous task every morning because they reassign permanent teacher subs to also classified vacancies if we don't need them. Today, we didn't need 2 of our permanent licensed subs because we didn't have as many vacancies. And then, and if there's no vacant teaching position exists for the day in the district, they can go ahead and reassign it. So, let's see. So here's principal efforts to recruit and hire. Principals recruit parent volunteers, both for classified and multiple permanent subs filled that way. Principals make contact with the classified licensed subs in order to reach out and thank them for being there when they come in the sub. But there's other ways that principals are really trying to recruit the licensed subs that come into their building, so they choose us first. And what I'd like to do at this time, turn over to Angela, then Summer, then Juliana, and Karen, just to talk about this and share your, challenges and experience.
It's a challenge, but it is more hopeful than it's been the last couple of years. So like, I have 2 open instructional assistant positions right now. And last year at this time, when I'd have a couple positions open, I'd have like in the middle of the school year, which is not our hiring season, I'd have 2 good applicants apply. And now I've got 5 good applicants that have applied. So that's good. It's like, okay, I actually have a couple of people to choose from. So that's awesome. So that's an improvement. I think there are people that are willing to work now, whereas last year we couldn't find anybody that was willing to work. So that's good. But I would say it's all about networking. That's what I do all day long is I network. I went to the AT&T store a couple of weeks ago to get my phone fixed, wouldn't update, and I took my Starbucks card away. That's when I drew the line. I went into AT&T and I'm talking to the gal. She's working my phone forever. And I go, oh, do you like this job? What do you do? Da, 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 da. She goes, oh, well, I only work this job 4 hours a night, but during the day I work for OCDC as a pre-K IA. So you know what? I'm gonna have a pre-K position open. You should apply, can I get your phone number? I wrote her phone number down. As soon as it was posted, I texted her, she applied. She's one of my top candidates right now. So that's what we do every day is we network and find people. Same with subs. We have the same thing with subs. We have to network. We have to ask people personally. You know, one of my teachers was at the soccer field and she's like, oh, you sub? Great, can I get your name and contact information? Then she sends it to me. I have every sub in the district in my cell phone and I call them I don't call them. No, I text them every single morning. So like, you know, this morning I had 3 instructional assistants that were out. I start, you know, as soon as I get the notification, my staff is trained. They text me as soon as they know. And I start texting people, interrupts my workout, interrupts my morning routine, you know, but I start going through and texting people until I find somebody. Today, I sent out 1 million texts to all of my subs for roving sub job that will have our 100% meetings or 20% meetings that are coming up. And I'm like, next, you know, and people get back to me. The other thing we do, which I don't like to share because I compete with the people in this room, for subs is we try to make our place the most welcoming place in the district. I even heard from some parent volunteers from Dilly, like, oh, I heard you do a good job over at Cornelius and everybody wants to work at Cornelius because I've taken to buying frappuccinos and little protein snack packs for my subs and like little personalized welcome letter. And I greet them at the front desk and let me walk you down to your room and I'll open the door for you. And you know, make sure you have my cell phone number in your phone because you're in my phone and you can text me and you just, it's all about networking and connecting with people. So, and then you also have to prioritize because every day you have people missing at your school and I have a staff of 60. So if 3 people are out, I have to prioritize. I only have 1 sub. I have to prioritize where I'm going to put that person. So my priorities are always pre-K and SPED. And then after that, it's like kindergarten, then classroom positions. And then, you know, maybe interventions down below that. And for teachers, it's always classroom teachers are the first priority because you can't cancel 3rd grade. And then it is PE and music for me. And then it's any specialists. And I don't steal from like PE and music to fill my classroom positions because then I make everybody mad at school versus I take somebody and put them in a classroom that isn't taking everybody's kids all day long. And so I'm fortunate that I have a couple of instructional assistants that have gotten their emergency sub license, so I can pull them off of their duties and put them in, and then I have to just cover duties throughout the day, which I can do with office staff pretty easily. So like you said, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, it's moving the deck chairs on the Titanic, right? But it's the shuffle game that we do every single day, and so when we get those weekends, I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna get any text messages at 6 in the morning, like it's a lot of stress on principals to have the privilege and the responsibility of making sure every single position is filled every single day. And so I look ahead on ASOP every week, that's our system for absences. And I look ahead and I'm like, why do we have no absence? Oh, it's a Saturday. Okay, good. I look ahead every week. What absences do I already know about? And then I put them on my calendars too. So it reminds me who's out today, who's told me in advance. Those are the things I do.
So we need to do a time check because we're about a half hour in, so we've got.
I took all your.
Still have to talk through stuff.
Pick up the pace. I'll be quick.
You guys got 10 seconds left.
Sorry.
I'll be quick. I think definitely appreciating those that come in and word of mouth to get people. I think a lot of just putting it out even in our newsletter, like this is the position, if you know anybody, a lot of them are connected to somebody in some way, whether they're related or neighbors, whatever. We're a little bit unique in from the K4s in some ways, in that when we do have people out, classroom teachers specifically are always priority. We have every classroom teacher has an aim to be a group of kiddos, so we're filling that potentially with if there's nobody. And we aren't getting people, which we've gotten a lot more coverage lately, which has been awesome. It's potentially pulling a specialist for half a day, or, you know, sometimes even like trying to break it into 3, something logical that's still gonna support kids. And then backfilling that with, like Angela said, if you take 8 teachers prep away in a day is not gonna be a good thing for anybody and not for kids either. So, you know, if it happens to be music, then we're finding something for those kids to do during that time. If it's PE, I mean, we have a beautiful track. We also have other specialists can cover for different preps. So we're just being creative, and that's, yeah, looking at it the night before. If we know ahead somebody might pivot over, we're doing that, like sending a text, hey, you might be if nobody picks up. I think the challenge for Common Call specifically this year is we don't have emergency stuff within our building. The last 2 years, we've had like 5 or 6 to choose from, and they have moved on and become teachers in other states. They're finishing school. They are doing a long-term sub job, or they have said, you know what, this is too much for me to continue. So that's been a little bit more of a burden on our specialists. We're trying to spread that, so it's not every single time you're calling the same person, and then really as minimal as possible. But it does create a challenge for those teachers, and that's, you know, there's a little bit of a burden there for them, and, you know, everybody's just kind of supporting everybody in that. And yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at.
I can be quick too. So on top of some of these other things, something that we do is we have a template for our subs so that we try and make it as smooth as possible for our subs. Or if, a lot of times when we don't have subs, our teachers have to fill in for each other. So keeping it as simple as possible. Where is your technology? What kind of technology, and how do you plug in is like top, like. And then we have CHAMPS, which is a classroom engagement management. And so we have, how are you doing CHAMPS in your classroom? Does that look like easy for subs? And just, we have told teachers, like, just keep it simple. You don't know if you're getting 6 different teachers in your room. So like, just keep it as simple as possible. So whoever you get can fill those shoes and as seamlessly as possible, but it is a challenge. More challenging for classified. We don't have those yet. So.
Yeah, we are very similar. We often start the night before, and just if we have a high volume of people out, especially classroom teachers, then we have the luxury of going through our department chairs. And so we will email the department chairs to say, hey, we've got these unfilled positions. So start taking a look at who might be able to fill in, basically filling in during their prep period. Similar, we have subfolders for all of our subs so that they have really clear directions on what's going on in the classroom. Technology and everything. Classified is probably the biggest challenge. So we have a full-time classified. She's been filling in every day since the start of school. She's also got her emergency licensed. So she doesn't want to commit to a classified position because she wants to be able to get into a classroom if possible. But it really is, we've actually hired a lot of, just by word of mouth, and a lot of relatives. I mean, just kids, teachers' kids, brothers, sisters. I mean, it's just like, but we, again, try and create just a really welcoming environment, and just, it's kind of fun, you know, and getting people in, and they enjoy it. They enjoy the camaraderie and working with kids. So, but it is definitely a challenge.
Thank you. So other districts, in speaking with the districts that I mentioned earlier, they're having exactly the same problems: licensed staff, classified staff, substitutes that like the flexibility of working just 2 to 3 days and being able to pick. Substitutes are especially hard to find for sped IA positions. And the quote that just kind of resonated with me, that's kind of indicative of this environment: I've come to the conclusion that I cannot maintain the demands of a full-time position at this time. And that was one of our permanent building subs. And they resign that position so they can pick and choose and work 2 or 3 days a week as they want. And that's the kind of current reality that's out there from other HR groups.
Ricky, if you could just stay on this slide, the first slide, just for a minute. So I've been doing a lot of reflecting and listening to a lot of things that have been said over the last several weeks. And I do hear from a lot of teachers and parents and my own staff members, my coordinators. And I just want to start my part of the presentation by grounding us in one of our guiding principles, which is all students are general education students first. And that we use person first language when we talk about students. We don't call them IEP kids or SPED kids. We talk about students with disabilities. So, and also when we're allocating staffing in special education, we talk about presuming competence first. So that comes first for a student before we start assigning an instructional assistant or more support to that student. So there are varying degrees of that support. So just having that kind of context before we go into this part of the presentation is what I ask of you. Also, I wanted to say, listening to Angela talk about networking, we've always, and Brad remembers this, we've always done that in special ed because they've always been hard to fill. Like, this is probably a little more unique in the classified realm for us because people want some more adjustable hours, but we've always had to like really reach out to people and, you know, like Karen saying, friends, relatives. So it's not super new to us to have to be still hiring in the middle of the year. So just a little bit of that information. Okay. And I also just want to, I just want to recognize that our classified staff in this district have a really difficult job. And we're talking a lot about what we're doing and the things that we see and how we're making that difference. But I just want to recognize that the people doing the work are really making the difference. We did a project last year and worked with a company, and David Warner helped me with this to put together a packet of information about what we do in our jobs and different positions to help us recruit. And these were some testimonials from our classified staff. We also have recognized our classified staff in our monthly newsletter, and these are some of the things that they said and reasons why they became classified special education assistants. So we have a lot of great folks working out there in our district. Okay, so when we talk about special ed staffing, we have certain ways that we do this. So we do have a base level of staffing. So what we do is we do a weighted formula so that all buildings are getting an equitable amount of staffing. So Juliana, I'm looking at all the kids in her building that receive services, and I'm weighting that so that Juliana is not getting more staff because she comes to me and says, I need more staff than Summer is at Tom Hall. And that's our base level of staffing. And then we also look at each student's individual needs through the IEP team. That support's going to vary by need, as you know, and the time of day and areas of support vary. Not every classroom teacher is going to know that nuance or detail. If it's on a student's IEP, it will tell, but students might receive support with transitions to and from class, but never receive any adult support the rest of the day. So adult support isn't the same in every circumstance. And just a little bit about the role of instructional assistant. So we really want them to build independence. So we don't want adults with kids 24/7 all around the school. We do have kids with physical needs and personal care needs and safety needs. And those students, we're prioritizing their needs first, right? When we're talking about having limited numbers of people in certain buildings, we're talking about what are our biggest concerns, our most complex needs. We do offer academic tutoring and review of skills. So that's what we call more academic support, but our priority really is on the students that need a higher level of support. And then we have transportation support as well. Our assistants provide accommodations and modifications in the classroom, but to be very clear, that's by law, actually the general ed teacher's responsibility. In our district, we have unique opportunity of being able to accommodate when a teacher isn't able to do that. We know teachers have a lot of work, they have might have a lot of students, so they're partnering with that instructional assistant to make sure every kid's getting what they need. But we do recognize that adult support could also be a general ed teacher providing support to a student. These are really rough numbers because they change all the time. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot of our district. So at the time I did this, there was 887 students who received special education services. And I counted about 150 regular special education positions. Those are mostly just our budgeted positions that we roll forward every year. That doesn't include the additional positions that I have approved this year out of grant funds. If we looked at all the students in special education that receive services and the number of IAs we had, if we evenly distributed that, we would have one IA for every 5.9 students. So it gives you some sort of idea just in the terms of the level of support we have in the district. Clearly, that's not truly what's happening, but it gives you an idea of just the sheer, the level of support. Okay. Some of our challenges. we didn't experience this during the pandemic because I think it was all about COVID then, but unanticipated complex needs. And anybody that has worked here for a while can remember prior to the pandemic, every year it was the kinder first, right? Their kinder show up and we're like, oh my gosh, we didn't know who this kid was, or there are more needs than we really have anticipated for. And that just happens because you just can't know what your enrollment's going to be all the time. So this year we experienced that. We have a lot of students that have a lot of needs and just really unique and complex needs. We've added a special education classroom at Joseph Gale that's more specialized to meet that need. And we knew that was coming last spring. And that's a really challenging classroom to staff because you're working with some real challenges there. When we add general ed classrooms at the beginning of the year, after we see those classroom numbers go up, it does impact us in special education because then we have students spread out even more. And so we have to figure out how to meet needs in more classrooms. Newer staff, resignations, all the things that you've heard John and the principals speak of, limited experience, the HQ assessment, it is what it is. We have to do it. And we also have moving to general building positions, and the principals know this. We've had the opportunity to hire intervention positions and health assistants, and a lot of our folks, because they're getting the same rate of pay, will move to a position where they're working with less complex needs. And then our substitute fill rate, really over our position fill rate, the sub rate is our biggest challenge. We probably have less than 30% of our classified positions filled every day. And so when people are feeling that, they're getting sick, no one's picking up the slot for them, everybody feels that. And then we have the same issue with leaves and things like that, which we always have. So we know that's always been a challenge.
So Kim, could you help me understand what happened? So you're saying that we're only filling 30% of like the classified substitute when we need them. So what does that look like for the special ed facilitator at that building? What are they doing about that?
They're rearranging schedules. So they're rearranging staff, and Karen knows this because she's done a lot of it. She's actually been really helpful because what we do is look at student support needs. So students that we always have students that require one-to-one support. We always have them staffed. That's not non-negotiable, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to look at, like, if you have a classroom aide, if you have an aide in your classroom the whole time, but the student just needs check-ins, you're not going to have them sitting in that class the whole time. You're going to have them moving around. So that facilitator and some of the special ed teachers at the high school level, because there's more of them, do have to look at the schedule and look at student needs and moving but staff around. And then sometimes we're going in there. So Toby and Kelly often go in and sub. I'll go in and cover something.
Well, that leads me to my next question. The facilitators have 2 preps a day. Is that correct?
At the middle and high school.
So are we pulling them out of one of those preps to cover?
One of those periods is not an actual prep. It's not a contracted prep. It's a classroom period I've given them called classroom support, right, which does mean it's really designed for them to go into the classroom and work with IAs. It's not a dedicated prep time. So,
right. So they should be in the classroom covering for aides that aren't there.
They do. Yeah. Yeah. They, if they can. Yeah. We have teachers.
Well, what else would they be doing if they're not doing that? Because you said it's designed for that reason.
They could be testing kids. They can be pulling them out for accommodations. They could be, doing additional instruction. And we have staff members covering during lunches to help initiate feeding protocols. So here's just some of the response that we've taken. We've looked at alternate methods of posting positions. So we know, like Indeed and those kinds of things. We're also looking at different ways of refreshing current positions and maybe looking at job descriptions, having them be like more compelling. One of the things that we found out this year is that a lot of staff that come to us, or employees or candidates that come to us, don't want to work a 6.5-hour job. It used to be that everyone wanted a 7 or 8-hour job. Now we have people saying, I only want to work 4 hours. And we're telling them, okay, we'll hire you at 4 then. So we're pretty much we're being flexible with them so that we can hire them in. Since August, we've done about 50 to 60 interviews. That's probably gone up since then. And then the special ed coordinators are spending, I would say, at least half a day to a full day week interviewing and following up with candidates. I was in the office past 5 and Kelly was in here offering someone a job and checking references. So, they're really working hard trying to go out there and get people in. Some of the things we've tried to do to retain, we have onboarding. So we work with HR to do an onboarding initially for all our staff where they get some initial training and working with students. And then we have a new IA cohort training and our coordinators run that. And so during professional development days, we bring classified staff in, we pay them to come in and we give them professional development on, different aspects of the job. We have a mentor, a retired educator who's excellent, who has come back to mentor our new teachers. And we're kind of redirecting her to help support some of our new IAs in the classroom in real time because our teachers are spread thin as well. And then we added an an ASD program specialist, which is an IA that's highly trained in autism and goes into the classroom and works with other IAs and teachers. And then we do some ongoing training during CIT. So CIT is really dedicated for teachers mostly, but we've in different pockets have done some targeted training. And then there's some targeted for classroom management PD, primarily at our CHAMP schools. We've done some training with our IAs, classroom management. And then we do some newsletter recognition. So every month we have a newsletter and we recognize employees and the work they're doing, both licensed and classified. You're good, Enrique. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, wait. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to continue to partner with HR and recruitment strategies for sure. We've been talking about that today. I guess we're exploring an exit interview strategy like John talked about, and then compelling job descriptions. So looking at the job titles, the job descriptions, creating flyers that can be distributed in the community. So not just a straight HR flyer, but maybe one dedicated for specific positions we have in the district. We're working on videos of staff as a recruitment tool to talk about their jobs. That takes a little bit more time. And then really, when I talk about continuous improvement, some of the things that I've been thinking about for a while now is listening to just the needs in the district, is really looking at our inclusive practices in the district in a really research-based way. And so we're going to be working with a research company called Hanover and working on about 6 projects over the course of a year to really do a deep dive and analysis into research-based practices for inclusion, how to use paraeducators, that's what they typically call in the country as paraeducators, and look at our own practices and see, are we meeting those best practices? What can we do differently? And also, what is the best practice out there for using staffing? And what are the most efficient ways to do that? So just kind of the next steps that we're working on in order to tackle the problem.
So we've got about 10 minutes, 15 minutes left, and we kind of arranged you into work groups of a board member, principal. I think, Arturo, you've got 2 board members there that we didn't quite work that out a little bit. But what we want to do now is just kind of work in a group and talk a little bit about, like, you've seen kind of all the things going on here. What are some ideas to improve? How do we fix some of this? Is there something that we're missing that we haven't thought of? Or even it's, hey, we want you to go explore this. That's what we want you to spend a little bit of time talking and collaborating about, and then we'll come back and share out real quick. And
Where we're sitting?
yeah, we've got you organized already. You got you 3 right there. Yeah, you got Karen and. Yeah, I messed up. Kate's group.
We need to be doing better. More of.
Have we started those?
We're gonna get you.
So how does that? One of the rewind that. You can do instead of saying it's 7:30 to 2:30 or whatever, just so that people will, as a mom. I could. If I could.
you know, what we could do, I could just, oops.
So think about what you're gonna.
You're okay. You don't have.
We're regrouping. Okay.
So just wanted to kind of see what the room was coming up with, like, what are the thoughts, what are the thinking there? I mean, we've had lots of ideas, but I'm sure there's better ones too, so.
I have lots of good ideas. Well, we have lots of good ideas, so we'll start.
This isn't an idea.
Every.
Don't start with the idea.
We have great ideas.
Thank you.
So one of the ideas is to break up the sub-assignments, how they're posted and how they're sent out, instead of saying 7:30 to 2:30, we think 8 to 2 might be better for parents, because then they can still take their kids to school, and they can also do a job. We also thought that maybe differentiating the pay for subs or recess IA should not be probably making the same as a different IA. So that'd be another one. Another great idea is an incentive for subbing a full week. If you work 5 full days, you get, a $25 or $30 gift card to Starbucks. If you work a full month, then maybe you get a $100 gift card to Starbucks.
You work a whole year, you get a car.
I think thinking at the gift card idea.
It's okay, Eileen, there are no bad ideas. Only expensive ideas, that's right. Something that came up is that when you sign up to sub, you have to pay $250 to get fingerprinted. Some people, that's a lot of money. And some other districts might be paying for it. I don't think we can exactly pay for it, but I would be willing to give an incentive that if you worked 10 days of the month, we will reimburse your fingerprinting, or 10 days
Yeah,
of the
it's
year.
through EduStaff, because when you sign up for EduStaff versus other ones, there's different fees depending on who you're signing up for, so either a reimbursement or,
Yeah, something. But like if you have worked at least, it doesn't even have to be the month, it could be 10 days over the whole time. We don't want to just pay for it because they might not ever sub for us, right? But if they worked a certain amount of days in our district, then we could reimburse them. The other last thing real quick is that right now EduStaff is coming here once every other week, I think, to meet with people and help them sign up to sub. We thought it might be a great idea to go to the library or somewhere where people are like hanging out during the day and might be willing, like they might be able to recruit some people, and we could still advertise that they would be meeting people at the library. So, all right, I think that's all we got. Very quickly. Who doesn't? You're not really anything to say about it.
It was okay.
I like the ideas around the work for us, and then there's some incentive.
Yeah.
Those are some good ideas, and I mean, the principals are kind of doing that on an ad hoc basis.
Right.
But those are good ideas. Yeah. Thank you. So, other groups.
Nobody wants to talk to me.
Nate, you're up.
Nate.
You're up, baby.
practice.
All right, so we had an idea as a group to like focus on more of like the positive aspects of the job, and even maybe like rebranding it like a little bit to having more of a positive outlook on it, because the word assistant can kind of be not necessarily like mean or like put down anyone, but it can definitely be looked on as more of a negative thing compared to like something like I think one of the ideas was a para-educator, which would be better, but also still kind of has that element of like, not fully in this role. So like something that would empower these like candidates and to make them feel like they're really included in something that's like important, and something that has like big affect on these students, because it is something that's important, and it's something that like, it's not an easy job. My mom worked as an instructional assistant, and some of my family members also did. And it's not an easy job, but it's definitely something that like you get moral happiness out of, and to more focus on that aspect would probably be beneficial. And the job description as well, to make it a little bit more compelling, and also to focus on that part, and not necessarily, the parts of how it can be a little more harder.
Take that.
I mean, moral happiness. Yeah, you got it.
On the sub side, how much, I mean, like, I'm thinking in terms of like getting people into the environment to see, working with kids. On this, we do that with our, I mean, we have onboarding and mentoring going on with our IAs, but how much do we do with our subs where we actually get them in the building and have them kind of experience what it's like?
Prior to 7?
Yeah,
We don't.
see, that might be another thing too, is to work with EduStaff around the paying them, but getting them in and get them do some sort of onboarding, because we've had 2 or 3 folks this year who picked up jobs and then they were like, I'm out, like it was abrupt. They came, what they experienced was not what they thought it was gonna be. It was like, maybe we work on that too.
One thing that worked for me when I had a social learning center in my building was, as part of the interview process, I would have candidates come in and spend an hour in the SLC to make sure it's a good fit. Like, I don't want to hire you. You think it's this job, but it's really this job. And you work for a day and you quit. So it's like, let's see if you can, like, if it's a good fit, it needs to be a good fit for you and for us.
You know, we wanna make it welcoming though. I mean, we're pretty much, we're hiring. We need them coming in.
But it's a lot to onboard somebody.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hours, and I'd rather know upfront, this isn't gonna work out than 2 weeks into
Agree.
onboard.
Start all
And
over
then
again.
send them to another school that might have a good fit,
Mm.
you know?
There we go.
And that's a perfect segue into our presentation. We really, what we talked about was the welcoming atmosphere that's happening, and can we look at maybe tightening that across the district so that it's one consistent book that every sub, no matter what building you're in, everything looks very consistent when you go from building to building, including a welcome little gift that they get. Like, what does that protocol look like no matter where you go? So you do get the reputation that people want to come to this district, not just to Angela's school. Like parents kicking butt there. So, and then at the district level, this is a question for Dave and the board at some point. Is it worth investing in the other piece of, like, we cannot have principals spending the time to do that work? Is it because they need to be doing other instructional pieces? Would it be worth staffing a district level position that is full-time right now, just full-time, or doing that work, doing some of the coordinating, doing the networking, working with principals to understand the needs of the building, bringing people for the shadowing? Is that worth, you know, what that looks like in our budget? And then at the state level, the conversation and legislative advocacy right now to be able to say, where is the state going to be able to direct funding specifically so that districts aren't competing, that it's targeted for this, like what feels like a 911 emergency. And then the final thought we had around that we did like the differentiated pay. But in addition to that, could we look at something that kicks in a 911 situation where 30% or less of your classified is filled? At that point, we then can offer a pretty significant immediate incentive. And I mean, I think that would be something to bring to staff. I know in a building, if staff is having to cover positions, I don't know that you would have as many feeling like, where's my bump? If they could say like, oh, we get it, like, there's nobody, yeah, go ahead, whatever it takes to get people in this building so we can continue to do our jobs. And then maybe when we fill those positions back up, that falls away. So those were our. But see, all together is a good team. And I mean, I will say, this has been an amazing presentation. I mean, the details, the principals taking the time, but also the detail, and it was a very comprehensive, and Kim, your explanation, I think that really helps people probably just understand where everything is, at least for me it did. So I thought that was really well done.
Thanks. So for next steps, I think what we're gonna do is, and again, if you have other thoughts as you're driving home, send them to us. We're gonna circle up again. We're meeting with principals coming up in the coming weeks here and take a look at some of these ideas. There's some really interesting ones, and then figure out kind of what the next steps are. I will say, I mean, like, our SPED administrators are spending 20% of their time now on hiring, when I could use them being SPED administrators that we've got. So there is, and we're not quite getting everything done because everybody's got full-time jobs on top of that. So again, there is some interesting ideas about, like, how do we change to make things.
The only thing I would say too is to baseline where we are right now with our challenges.
Yeah.
And to be able to quantify whether we're making improvements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So that we can check in and say, okay, in the fall, we were here. 2 months later, we're here. So, and then it'll probably be fluctuate a little bit in the center. So just to kind of give us an idea whether we're making progress or not.
Yeah. We have the fill rates, and that's kind of the thing that's telling us right now, like where we're at. We've seen some improvements over October, but still, I think that's probably the best instrument for us to begin to say,
The fill rates.
yeah, are we improving?
The other comment I would make is that Christie's comment about a district level administrator doing the staffing at a state level. And it's my experience that the staff that you build a relationship with and really connect with and recruit and be a part of that building are the ones that stay and make a difference. Typically, no matter what the pay is, most of the time. But when it's somebody else is up here assigning people, it's not the same thing as Angela meeting them at the door and making a personal contact with them and taking them to their room and talking with them and building a relationship with them. That would be the last.
Well, I think that piece would still remain. It's the piece that she's doing from 6 to 7, that where that person maybe doesn't have to be up here at the district. Again, like, and that's the impression, like, we're all up here, but we're all just right here. But maybe it's a person from within, or it's being creative with who we pay within a building. I don't know what, but I agree with you, Brad, like.
But you don't get those people when you assign them from here and asking them to go to the high school. It's different than when Karen meets them at the door and she's the one is a part of that process. You get them to stay and contribute. And so that,
Or you have a high school staff.
or a high school,
special education staff
even
that
better.
tells you, I have a friend who's flying and.
Yep.
that's even better.
So agreed on all of those parts. What I wrote was, there's still a resource issue. I don't know where that resource needs to be, but there is still kind of some resource issues about and the principal's always gonna have to be in the mix because they gotta know who's in their building. But there's still a resource problem. I just don't know exactly what the right fix is yet, Brad.
Well, the class ratios are different than they used to be too.
Yeah.
You got lower numbers in the classroom,
Yeah.
more classrooms. Really, you got less kids in special ed than we had, 10 years ago? So, and the enrollment's going down, but the staffing's going up. So, and then you have more staff to fill.
Yeah.
So all those things are contributing to what's going on right now, not to mention the pandemic. So, and it would be good to know whether we're getting better or not.
Yeah.
That would be my.
We can start pushing that out on Friday memos, just so that you see kind of where we're at for the week. Just so you can start to see what those ratios are.
Well, I definitely get a report for the month. And it shows week 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's also by other edu staff districts for the ESD as well. They don't have as many staff needs, but they give a percentage.
Mark, did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay. Well, I thought Kate is on this, right? She was in their group.
Okay. Oh, Kate.
We talked, again, I think we talked a lot about adequate funding for SPED at the state level, but also again, this idea of welcoming, making sure that the jobs are, people understand what they are, and then we're doing some work around welcoming. We spent some time talking, we went off subject and started talking about math and reading, professional training.
We're shocked, Kate. Okay, we're gonna.
Wait a minute, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I do want to say that I really think this was a great opportunity for us to all look at this together. So thank you for whoever put it together, but it was a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn the work session and go on to the regular session, now, 6:30. All right, good evening. Sorry, we're gonna get started a couple of minutes late, but I'm gonna call the November 27th, 2023 Fourth School District Board of Directors meeting to order at 6:45 PM. Roll call of board members present. Christie? Here. Brad? Here. Mark? Present. And Kate?
Here.
Awesome. Okay, please rise to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'd like to have the audience introduce themselves. We will go ahead and get started right over here.
Parent, Sarah Field, parent, Susan Field, parent and grandparent,
Beverly Cornelius, grandparent.
Kim Shared Director of Student Services.
Lead Director of Curriculum Instruction.
Mark Hughes, Facilities Director.
Eileen Clute, Business.
Enrique Pinion, Technology.
Ricky Carter, Director of Nutrition Services.
Danielle Thomas, assistant principal at Tom McCall, Elena Santana, literacy coordinator.
And Jenna Rodriguez Smith, union rep.
And Sarah Oval, FGEA president / high school teacher. Juliana Kelly, principal of Neil Armstrong.
Danielle Spade, parent.
John O'Neill.
Erin O'Neill, high school.
Great, thank you guys for coming tonight. At this time, can I get a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Great, moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence and celebration. Does anybody on the board have anything? Oh, hold on.
It's another.
Just you today. Christie's got some stuff for it.
I'm not sure, a couple things. Okay, a thank you to Natalie Ulrich, who is Natalie Benoggenhagen, an ex-student of mine who is now the playground supervisor at Echo Shaw. And had me come and he was gracious enough to have me come and just hang out. A whole new appreciation for what happens on the playground with 3 or 4 kindergarten classes out there at the same time, and saw all the emotions on display multiple times, and it was one of those beautiful sunny days. But we were then able to go inside, and her kids both attend that school, and we visited Rosa Ricon's room, and Rosa was one of the teachers that shared our previous meeting about the dual language piece, and I was actually able to see 100% engagement in this classroom. And they were actually trying a program that Rosa said that she had heard about when she was down at the conference. And I realized that I need to hablo español. Necesito que hablar español más, porque I haven't spoken it for a long time, but these kids were highly engaged with reading in Spanish, talking in English. It was pretty exciting. So Echo Shaw was very welcoming. And that was great. And then also NAM's lunchtime, the lunchtime cafeteria staff just had, we were able to serve up the smiles on Friday, I believe. And the staff, I was equally impressed with how efficient the staff was in getting the food out so quickly and amazingly. Just fast and with precision and cleanliness, and it was just not the cafeteria that I remember at my middle school. And I won't tell you where that was, years ago, but, and also every single student that came through at AMPS, every single one said please or thank you. It was really something. It was really exciting. And then we were out at lunchtime with all the middle school kids, and one of the supervisors at NAMS is actually an ex-student who was in our Math Warriors group at when we were high school, and he has graduated and was working at NAMS, and he said the reason he has really appreciated that position is because he feels like he's getting wonderful experience. And I asked him if he has aspirations to do some accounting up in the district office, look out at me, and then he was really interested in even maybe becoming a high school math teacher. So just a really cool, surprising experience, very positive at both schools, and things to go through with teachers and kids and everybody there. And whoever coordinates those. Not them. The next, I kept saying. Yeah, they were there and they just did a good job.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks, Christy. We love hearing about this stuff. Next up is Nate with our student representative reports.
Hello, all right, perfect. All right, so I don't have a lot to go over today, but it was more stuff from before the break happened. And we don't have a ton planned for this month, but we are looking forward to some events, like we have our student council meeting on the 29th. We have a rally on the 30th for the high school. Winter sports are starting up. And the rally on the 30th is to commemorate all of our fall sports and the various achievements that they've had, which is really cool. We are planning the election, so the ASB election is already starting to get focused on. We're gonna make it a lot better, hopefully, than we did last year. And that will all be kind of happening in February to March. But we're just kind of getting ready for it right now. Also, shout out to the Bike Ventures play, which was really awesome. I was not able to go, sadly, but I was able to help behind the scenes a little bit. And that whole program is just really awesome. And everyone a part of it is just really wholesome. And it was just a great show from everything that I've heard. So that was really awesome to see. And also our support staff appreciation week went very well. We gave gift baskets to our lunch staff and our bus drivers, which is something that we previously didn't really do. And they seemed very appreciative of it. We always try to do our best in ASB to make sure that everyone feels like Forest Grove High School is a welcoming environment. So we got a lot of good feedback and it was really wholesome. Right now we are planning an informal dance, which I have never done before, so that's very interesting. The theme is Candyland, and it's one of the things that we actually brought back from OASC, which was the leadership conference that we went to recently. And it turns out that they can be very good and profitable, and that a lot of people enjoy attending them. So hopefully this will be like our test drive, and we can start having more informal dances in the future. And also we have oh yeah, so we're gonna have the theme be Candyland for that, if I didn't already say that. And we are planning a spirit week around that, which is really fun, coming up with a lot of candy puns. So yeah, that's essentially what we've been doing, and it's been really fun.
Hey, what is an informal dance?
Yeah, so, yeah, because I didn't know what it was either, honestly, so, but the whole idea is that, so there's this event that we do called Jam the Gym, where I believe it's before, the basketball playoffs, we have a home game where everyone tries to like come in on the gym floor and just like, I don't know, jam it. I've never really been to one, but afterwards, so what we're wanting to do is have a dance where people can just come in their casual clothes, and as opposed to something like winter formal, they could just be wearing like t-shirts, and then we put on some music in the cafeteria, you know, put some lights and decorations, and just have a good time.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for sharing, Nate. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll move on to Superintendent Parker with recognition and superintendent report.
So want to start with the calendar notes you've got there, the couple that I want to point out, the winter concerts are on this one. So take a look at those pieces. Choir concert on 13th for the high school. You've got some of the other orchestra and jazz concerts. So those are all great places to head to. So just want to make sure I point those pieces out. The other thing about this calendar is it's basically now 3 weeks until until the break. And I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and were able to relax and, kind of get geared up, because of these 3 weeks tend to be a little bit of a sprint. And for a lot of our staff and a lot of our kids, coming up to the vacation is actually very stress producing. And I just wanted to point out, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of our investments coming up here, but we have invested in counseling. We have invested in care coordinators, and we have invested in mental health assets throughout the district. So I just want to remind people that as they're going through, I know our principals, we have many of them here tonight, but they'll be working with kids and trying to make sure that folks who are under stress get access to some of those assets. But it is a really busy time for us. It always is every year, and it just has to do with kind of this moving into the break. So just want to kind of point that one out to everyone. And then that's it for tonight. We have lots of, it's a long meeting, so I'm going to keep this moving.
Okay. Thank you very much. Forest Grove Education Association, your turn.
I'm gonna slow down a little bit, you guys are too fast for me.
Okay, so, tonight I'll be speaking to giving insight to what happens when subs are needed and those, who need to be recognized for how it impacts their day. So first of all, we'd like to recognize the principals because they get the brunt of it, like when they come into school, that's the first thing they have to recognize is who's in the building, who's not. And then, second thing is secretaries, because they keep it all together. They're making all the phone calls, trying to make sure the subs are where they're supposed to be. Third, well, now that I'm at the high school, I see it a different way about when in elementary, and I can only speak to Joseph Gale, is you would go in and there's a whiteboard and you'd see a teacher's name, who was out and who was covering. And you're like, okay, we have so many people out of the building. I'm in high school. What I see is like, emails asking, can a teacher cover, another teacher's block? And maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, but I usually try to cut my time. I mean, but I understand that we need to cover where we can, but at the same time, you're giving up your prep time in exchange for dollars, which is minimal. And prep time actually is more valuable than the dollar amount. So this is not trying to, I'm not trying to problem solve here. It's just an FYI to what a typical day looks like at school if you're looking at it for a fishbowl. And then I want to give kudos to NAMS for lending giving calc vegetables because our cook this morning didn't have enough vegetables to serve. And so our secretary went to NAMS to get the vegetables to serve to the students. And so I like the way they work hand in hand. And then I also wanted to recognize the news program at the Forest Grove High School. I watch that regularly and I'm a fan. I think it's great. I love the first one with Karen in it. I would recommend that everybody watches the first one. That's pretty much it.
I can second that. I watched the news program too, and it was great.
Good.
Yeah, that's fun.
So
Okay,
I just have a comment about what you were talking about in the staffing and I,
I'll make it back.
well, you don't have to, but I mean, the work session was about that tonight. And
I'll go back.
it's just, I mean, I've sat in the seat of getting to the building at 6 a.m. and trying to fill vacancies as well as principal. And it's a really trying, I don't know the answer to this. I mean, I hope that more people go into education. I hope that we have more positive press about education and the impact that educators have on kids. It just, to me, it just doesn't feel like it's that way right now. And so I think the session we had tonight was really great. I don't know the answer, but I hope that it gets better.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Mark. Unscheduled public appearance. We have none. We will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items of the consent items the board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? No? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next date. And presentations. David Warner was gonna be presenting to us, but he is out sick, so Renee Parker will be presenting about the student investment account.
I am gonna pinch hit here a little bit. We want to talk through this. It's a little bit confusing. Last spring, we went through a process and you approved our new integrated guidance, which includes the student investment account, the High School Success Act, early warning. There's about 5 different grants. But in completing, before we did the integrated guidance, there was the student investment account. This is the year-end summary of what we did with the student investment account. Well, I shouldn't say it that way because it's not quite that. It is the annual summary that we're giving for last year's SIA. ODE has designed this, and they've designed what they want. I think you can stay here. They've designed kind of what they want in this, and it's going to be 4 questions. But before I get there, I want to just again remind everybody the purpose of the student investment account is around meet students' mental and behavioral health needs, increase academic achievement. Those are the main pieces. They gave us a couple of categories that we could spend in, and that was in pursuit of academic achievement for one of your underserved populations, class sizes, there was behavioral health and wellness. But that's what this money was meant for. Go ahead. Please, that's on the very. So, ODE, like I said, you're getting second string here, so
You're fine.
ODE's reporting requires this annual report, and it needs to be submitted by November 30th, and then we link it to the website. Okay, please. This annual report is basically 4 questions, and I handed you a written piece. You do not need to read that. I'm going to kind of explain it, but you'll see kind of where, but they ask the questions and we're answering them. But it doesn't have like all the details of the fact that this SIA is about 50 FTE, both classified and it's a sizable. It is a very large grant that we use to run our systems. But I'm going to kind of run you through the 4 questions really quickly. But I'm going to run you through them so we can at least talk about kind of what our answer to this. The first one is, what changes in behavior, actions, policies, or practices have you observed related to the SIA implementation? And so there's kind of, we spend this on security. So there's a whole bunch of different things that this does, but I wanted to point out several specifically. Our district prioritized our ELL population, increasing counseling and behavioral mental health offerings, and providing offerings around well-rounded education. All told, this is about 50 FTE, 49.8, I think is the actual number. To accomplish these, we primarily work on hiring good people to join the district and make lasting progress. We hired ELD TOSAs who work with all of our teachers around making language accessible to our students. We hired one admin position that was an ELL migrant and equity position. We've hired ELD teachers. We actually expanded the amount of ELD teachers that we have in our schools. We also, to do this, we also prioritize behavioral health and wellness. And in this, you've got, kids continue to struggle with their behavior and mental health. Adding in, originally it was about 8 FTE of counseling. Since that time, we've begun to move some of that FTE towards the general fund. But we still hired an extra 8 counselors, 2 care coordinators, and an administrator who kind of administrates this whole behavioral health and wellness piece. We watched as ASCA, the National Association of Counselors, recommends that your counseling caseloads be at about 250. We're close we're not out of the shooting range. There's nobody else that I know in in our county or anywhere near us who is anywhere close to meeting the ASCA ratio. So we've used this to do that. You'll also see there's lots of, systems that are being put into place across the district that are coming from because of these folks in our organization. The last thing I wanted to highlight was changes to Calc. Originally, Calc was serving about 59 students. And with this money, we've done a couple of things. First, we added in a 4th FTE. But since that time, we've added in an administrator and another we've taken from the general fund and added 3 more FTE. And they're going from 59. By the time he hits the kind of the 5th window this year, they'll be somewhere between 182 and 195 students. Some of those are online, but probably 125 to 150 will be in person of some sort. So there's lots of other pieces there, but I think those are the ones that we wanted to kind of highlight as what changes we're seeing. The second piece here is in question 2. What barriers or challenges to SIM implementation have you experienced that are helpful for the community? So one of the things that I want folks to understand about this is, I think when they created this grant, they thought there was going to be a lot of change year to year. But the fact of the matter is we've hired almost exclusively people. So if you're cutting people if you don't do the same thing next year. For the most part, our counselors, our ELB, the security pieces that we put into place, those were good investments, and we're doing them again, and we're doing them again this year. We continue to kind of face the challenges around hiring. We just spent the first part of but that is truly, I mean, trying to get the qualified people into the positions is a challenge. ELD and any kind of specialized pieces are really hard for us to hire right now. Professional learning, again, I think we're seeing, I think 47% of our staff is in their first 5 years. So again, lots of professional learning challenges for us. Question 3. I just want to go back to 2 for a second. This money is being well spent. There's not a whole lot of challenges here. It's actually valuable, and if it goes away, it's going to have a huge impact into what we're doing in the district. That's why I don't have a whole lot in number 2. 3. So I think ELD is probably one of our best examples of this right now, which is I don't remember the exact percentage, but they're the only group that increased the graduation rate across the pandemic. And part of this was around what we're doing, the migrant liaisons that they have at the high school, the extended ELD FTE that we've got into our the FTE was actually spent in the elementary schools. We've actually added to that with our general fund to the middle and to the high schools now. We've extended that FTE even further. But I think that's probably one of the things that you can see here is that we are working with these groups. The other thing that last year, as you remember, our engagement, we used our engagement to create the strategic plan, but we also did over 500 empathy interviews with students. We did over 100 empathy interviews with parents, and they told us a lot. Our third strategic plan goal is really focused around how we can continue to do that. I think the plan with SIA that's a little different is how do we engage every year? And we put out a big effort last year to do that engagement. We're still working on kind of how to systematize this. Senate Bill 732, I've talked about it with board leadership, but this is the creation of a committee that basically has representation from, it's called the Board Equity Committee, but it really is around making sure that we're engaging all the various aspects of our community. I think it fits in well with goal 3. We're kind of beginning to have some conversations about how that's going to all come together, but I think there's good overlap there. And then on question number 4. as you think about what guided your choices and prioritization efforts in this year of SIA implementation, what stands out? I mean, our plan is to continue this investment. I mean, we've invested in, it follows with what they wanted. We invested in exactly the categories that they told us you should invest in. And we're seeing good, it makes a huge difference. 50 FTE going away from our organization right now would be catastrophic. And they're not planning on adding, leaving. This money is gonna be year after year. It has its own tax that funds it. But again, it's just critical in the things that we're doing. We would not be able to do this out of the general fund right now. I think the big thing, and you'll hear a little bit about it later today, is we're gonna end up using some of this SIA money, some of the general funding to braid with our early literacy amount. I think there's $460,000 in the early literacy grant. That is not enough money to pay for the reading specialists and the things that we want to do to kind of impact. Kind of what Kate was just talking about there in the last meeting around how do we really begin to impact kids who are behind in reading, but maybe not yet at the place where they need a individualized education program. But that's going to take money, and this will be part of that investment. We'll grade SIA, early literacy grant, and then general fund to kind of complete that whole piece. I think that's kind of the extension that you're going to see here of this. And with that, you don't have to take action or anything, but if you have questions. Great.
All right.
I think I struggled putting this together well, David had most of it together, but I was trying to figure out what to say because of a lot of what I think you want to know is like, well, how many FTE are here and how many FTE are there? That's going to come, we'll present that later in the year as we begin to bring forward the budget ideas and everything. But, and you approved the integrated guidance one of last spring. So if you do have questions on that, I can do that. It just was kind of what they wanted from us, and I was trying to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
So.
No, we appreciate it. It's good.
It's great.
Yeah, not bad. Okay, moving on to action items. We have a few. First one, Oregon School Board Association Board of Directors, position 16. There was, I think one candidate for this position. So I'm just gonna make a motion and we'll go on from there. I move to appoint Tristan Urban to the OSBA board position number 16.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Dave. Oregon School Board Association Legislative Policy Committee position 16. Let me just make sure there was only one person so far.
Well, there was a little bit of a mix up on the information, right? I mean, we know Becky and Timchik, but they had like Tristan's information in her.
Oh, and that.
Okay, but
there's really only one.
and she's awesome, so.
Okay, so the one candidate is Becky Timchuk?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move to appoint Becky Timchuk to the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee number 16. Christie seconds, all in favor? Aye. Kate?
Aye. Aye.
Gotcha, thanks. Oregon School Board Association Resolution 1. Did you guys all see that thing? Okay, I move it to approve OSBA Resolution 1 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. OSBA Resolution 2. I move to approve the OSAA collective agreement between Forest Grove High School, or Forest Grove School District, sorry. That's wrong? Yeah, that's in the wrong spot?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
resolution 2 that amends their bylaws.
All right, let me go to the, I've got it on this page. Okay, I move to approve the Oregon School Board Association Resolution 2 as presented. Second, Mark seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Kate. Yeah, that was from the meeting before, okay. I know, like, that was right. We are moving on to the 2024-25 school calendar. It's going to be presented by Mr. O'Neill.
No, just cute.
Just Juliana.
Just in case.
Okay.
Phone friends.
Okay.
As you know, our last board meeting, we brought two proposals from the district calendar committee, which we had representatives from all bargaining. And the board asked for two things. One, pros and cons regarding parent conference formats. And each of you received this document in the board packet. And basically the current dates and format for pre-K 8 in October and 9-12 in November. Align everyone with elementary October dates, or align everyone with secondary, or align secondary with high school, the middle school with the high school, and then elementary PK 4 stay in October. So those were the pros and cons that we generated with principals. Next, we talked about sharing the staff results, and on your table in front of you are three survey results. The board asked to get the staff results, and you can see of the two options, 88.7% of the staff voted for option 191 for the school year. Parent results, 71.5% for option the 191. And the students also voted for that, 85.9%. There is a small tweak in your calendar. One of the things we noticed before we send it out is Martin Luther King is the third week in January. So that's been changed on your handouts. So that's the calendar that we are asking for consideration on both versions.
Don, can you say that one more time?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it was originally on the 13th, and it needs to be on.
So you have the correct.
You have the correct
That's
version.
Right, I see that.
Yeah, just a small group. And then also, I just need to point out, whichever one of these versions the board ultimately passes, it has to be negotiated with both units, FGEA as well as OSCA, because it's additional day or days. Any further questions?
So process wise, then we take a vote on which calendar we would support, and then once we've supported the calendar that we think is best for the district, then the negotiations will start in the spring.
We'll probably, we'll go right away to start working through that process to negotiate to change the contract to add either 1 or 2 days to the 190 contract.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Did you guys all get to see the graphs about what the teachers want to do and want to stay on? So, if it's all right with you guys, I'd like to make a motion for the 191 fee. Does that sound like the right thing to do? Well, hold on, is that fine? Okay, or do you want to talk about it a little?
Yeah, comments.
Yeah.
Discussion?
Yeah, you want me to make the motion and then discuss?
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we approve, version 191B of the school calendar, the 2024-2025 school calendar as presented. Okay, so let's talk. You guys want to talk about anything specific?
Well, I just, I mean, I talked about it last time. I, since getting on the board, so I'm elected to the board, I've been an advocate for adding school days in the district for forever. You know, I didn't know anything about these calendars until they were presented to us, I think, at the last meeting. And so when I saw that one of them held the option for increasing an instructional day by a day, year by day, I like that. I know that I've seen that, and it's not surprising to see the graphs that, the other calendar had a lot of votes for it. Not surprising at all. But, I guess I just would say that I continue to be an advocate for adding school days. for instructional time for students. Now more than ever, I think students need it. And, those are my thoughts.
Go for it.
So I feel the same way, and since we joined the board, it's always been trying to increase student contact days. Especially coming out of COVID, to look at the difference between the two schedules. I would advocate for the one with the most student contact days. We did this, I don't know how long ago, 15 years ago, kind of that same format. We used to go until Wednesday. We made budget cuts. We gave everybody the week off. Money came back. We decided, let's see what people want. We went through the same process. But in terms of what I think we should be doing in terms of increasing student contact days instead of decreasing.
Right, I agree. Overall, I want to increase student contact days, but the thing with these calendars is one of them's not gonna decrease the student contact days, we're just not gonna get the extra one. Which hurts.
I guess that's my point.
Yeah, which hurts, but when you look at this, the feedback and everybody saying they want the specific calendar, I feel like we should respect that and go with it. But I also feel like it is a priority of the board to increase student contact days, and we want them. Like, we want them, and they're gonna happen, and somewhere down the line, we have to compromise on this to make it happen. I just think it's a big thing, and I hope that if the bond wasn't happening and we could have started school earlier, that would have made a big difference.
Yeah, and in terms of student contact days, I've always felt like, and those of us that have been in education for a long time know that those last 2 or 3 days, I don't really classify it as student contact days in most school settings, not all. Like the high school, they have finals at the very end, so they're working right up. So if we're gonna get increased student contact days, I believe that it should be in the core or the center of that school year. It just the way education has worked over the years, that those critical times in the school years for learning happen in those few kind of 3-week periods, 4-week periods. It doesn't happen June 15th or June 14th. It just doesn't. This is my opinion. So, yeah, I'm going to support whichever calendar has the most instructional days. And that's the reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
One other thing I want to talk about with these calendars is, the conferences for the middle school. Like, if you look at the pros and cons sheet, the only con for aligning secondary NAMs with the secondary calendar is that their conferences would come 2 weeks after or 2 weeks into the 6 weeks. Do you guys think that's a big deal, or do you think that's not a huge deal?
I was gonna ask Julie that question.
That's why I'm here.
Juliana, what do you?
Well, so I really like having conferences right after the grading period, because the families come through, they get their report card, they get immediate feedback from teachers. 2 weeks later, those grades are gonna change, so, that's my preference. And I've talked with my teachers a little bit, but only informally, so I don't have a solid answer on what teachers prefer. The other option, aligning with the high school, just means that's better for our students in terms of those off days. Ideally, we would, in my opinion, align with elementary school so we can do conferences all day on that Thursday. But I know that gets rid of an instructional day, and so that's a difficult choice to make there. So it is sort of there's no great answer there either way.
So, but it's correct that, or at least I've heard that at the high school, there's the state volleyball tournament. Which
Right.
moves.
That's why the high school got pushed back once.
Put them back,
Yeah.
but in 2 years,
yeah.
that's maybe. We signed a 2-year contract with OSAA, so in 2 years, maybe that could.
We have a great,
Potentially.
we have a great gym.
Yeah,
I don't see,
they'll probably keep
I don't
that.
see.
It's not gonna go from.
The other thing I will say is having them on different dates for our district is better for our families than to have everybody the same night, so that our families can make it to everybody. So I do agree with having some separation. Yeah. Pros and cons to each model.
we've been doing this for so long, that I mean, it's just been a discussion item for a long, long time.
I think really kind of comes down to, is it better for parents to just know that we're doing secondary conferences? Is that clarity, like this one we're doing secondary conferences, this one we're doing elementary, you get that. Waiting, I mean, in my other districts, we did conferences 1, 2, even later. It's really, I mean, the fact that the parents have the grades ahead of time and they come in with more prepared, that's, so really just for me, I could make arguments both sides. It kind of comes down to, do you just want to make it very clear, this is when secondary conferences are, this is not, or you go back to, no, they do like, where they're currently at. I don't know how else.
Yeah, that's what I kind of think it is too, is like how it is, or do you want it to be, because you guys follow a secondary calendar for everything else.
And our conferences are all together in the spring.
Right. So this is like the only, it's just like this one little blip, I feel like, in the calendar, where you're in an anomaly.
And again, when, before the volleyball tournament, with the 3 sons, 2 years apart, we never made it to Jimmy's conferences. We were worried about the other 2, but we had to pick, you know, which ones are we going to? That's when Tom McCall and in high school. Does that make sense? So that's.
But I will say, I mean, I can make an argument there of having kids in elementary school and there's one in the NAMS, and you run into that same problem. So we have different families will end up with those same, I mean, we're always gonna have those conflicts no matter where you put this thing. Make that clear as mud.
Kate, do you have any thoughts or comments?
I do. I agree with Mark and Brad. It would be nice to add a whole bunch of days to school. In fact, I would love year-round school. However, I feel that we need to listen to the teachers, the students, and the parents. And again, I've said this before, is that having that week off, it helps people that have had flus and colds, etc., everybody get well. It also gives times for parents, I mean, not parents, teachers to plan, do their lesson plans, also do their grades, and just give people a breathing room. I think we really need to think about the whole picture, and the whole picture is that you know, people are really stressed out right now. People are really doing their best, our teachers, our parents, and I think we need to honor our teachers. When you ask people and they give you their thoughts about something and then you negate it, I don't think that's very good for staff morale. I really don't. And I've taught in Hillsborough, I've taught in Forest Grove, and I just see people coming back after Thanksgiving week, the students and the teachers relaxed, feeling better. I only wish we could find in the middle, like what Brad said, some more days for our kids. So I'm in support of the 1B, and I really have to say that the loss of teachers, we need to make sure that we provide instruction for kids, and I know everybody went on this and looked at the calendar, that put the calendar together to try to find some more days. But I feel that I don't want to see anything that us lose teachers, and I don't want to see anything like Portland Public, what happened of them losing 3 weeks of school. So I'm a supporter of 1B.
Okay, did you have any thoughts about the conferences?
You know, I don't. I think as Dave said, there's pros and cons on both sides. So I don't.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Christy?
Check. Okay. On the calendar, on the conferences, I actually agree with what Dave is saying there about trying this year to align, to make it more simple for parents, just just to do that this year and then get feedback to say, well, we did do this. Now what are parents thinking? And, do they notice, like, Juliana, what you mentioned? So I'm in favor of aligning the middle and high. And the calendar, I just want to reiterate that both of these calendars were brought to us after extensive work with the committees, who threw out, the ones that weren't going to be good and said both of these calendars are good for kids for different reasons. So, vote for one for student contact day doesn't necessarily mean that the other calendar is not valuing student contact time. And so I think you just get both things happening with supporting what the majority of teachers and parents and students are wanting this particular year because of the levels of stress and need. And then understanding that I can't speak for the teachers, but because they're not up here, I will say that I don't think there's probably teachers or parents or anyone in this room that doesn't want additional days added the next year after the bond is done, when we can do it on the front end. So to me, I'm just gonna make a plea for the board itself to consider going with this one calendar, which is, it said
191B.
but it's
It's 191B.
Do you want to amend for the conference?
Yeah, I'll make it a full motion. Do you guys feel that we have discussed? No? Nate, do you have anything you would like to add from a student's perspective?
I can, yes. As a student, I will advocate on behalf of what the students are saying, and honestly, I've never really seen like Forest Grove High School students like really come together on like one specific thing like this. Like honestly, it's always like split and people are always like, oh, well, this and that. But honestly, on this, especially from like what I've heard anecdotally from people in my school, and even like teachers informally, like I've pretty much heard in all accounts that the number 2 option, right? Yeah, is the one that we should go with, and I just think that you guys should really highly consider approving that one.
Okay, thanks, Nate. We appreciate your
I
feedback.
just want to correct one thing because of the 191B, option 2 does not, we have a professional learning day on Thanksgiving, and it's a critical day. It's not a week off for staff. It is staff only on that Monday, but it's a critical day. It's one of the reasons.
That was the day that got added.
Yeah,
The
that's-
professional development day.
That's a very important day, so I just want to make sure we clarify.
We should put that out.
Students won't be there, but staff, it is a big day for us. So.
And I would just add that I think when you look at the calendar, there aren't many days that you can play with. I mean, there just aren't many days. I know you looked at it closely. There's holidays, there's set 2-week vacation, spring break. There aren't a lot of days you can mess with. I think I saw that on the 191 calendar.
Yeah.
October, you recaptured October 11th, I think.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yes.
I mean, that's good learning time. And so I understand that. I do understand that there aren't many options when you look at a calendar. You can start earlier, you can go later. In the middle, there's not a lot of days you can recapture. I'm still an advocate of that.
Okay, if everybody's okay, I'm gonna do a new motion and I'm gonna put in the amending the calendar. Okay, so I move to approve version 1B191. The 2025 school calendar as amended, moving the Neil Armstrong conferences to the secondary calendar, so that is like. Christie kind of seconded.
1 second.
Okay.
Still working through that last part there.
She's like, second? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Christie? Aye. Brad?
No.
Kate?
What are we voting on? Are we voting on the conference or the calendar?
You have to do both. We had to amend it to move we amended it to move the conferences to align with the secondary calendar, and we are voting on the second option of the calendar, with just the staff development day.
So I am voting on the second calendar, correct?
Correct.
I'm a yes.
Okay, motion passes 3-2. Thank you, guys, and
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Joanna. All right, Air conditioning, Fern Hill Elementary School, Eileen. Welcome. I feel like it's been so long since this.
Well, I only have 3 minutes, but,
Okay.
the first one we have is for the air conditioning for Fern Hill, Tomahawk Hall East and Tomahawk Hall West. And so this purchase is $359,000. It's for the equipment only to do the air conditioning in those 3 buildings. And the reason why is because it's about a 26 to 28 week lead time for the equipment. So we're doing this separate than the labor. And then we'll go out for bids for the labor as a separate item and bring that back to you. This is all part of our ESSER 3 federal stimulus spend down plan, to improve HVAC and air quality across the district. And we're looking at all of our HVAC needs across the district for both bond and ESSER and what we can do to enhance all of our HVAC. So this is just the next step in that process.
Okay, great. Does anybody have questions for Eileen?
I just want to say thank you, Eileen. This has been such an issue, and there's more coming. We have other buildings, but trying to get all of these buildings, I mean, we had to cancel summer school several times over the last couple of years because of temperatures, and so this is just awesome getting these buildings done. So thank you.
Yeah. We appreciate you. Okay, does that make a motion?
Yeah.
Great. I move to approve the purchase agreements for the AC units at Tomahawk Hall Upper Elementary School East, Tomahawk Hall Upper Elementary School West, and Fern Hill Elementary School for $359,270 and to be funded with ESSER 3 funds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, number 2.
Right, the next one we have tonight is also part of the bond projects, and as our safety and security committee, we've been meeting over the last year. We had a third party come out and assess the cell coverages and the DAS coverages in all of our buildings. And as far as the DAS part of it, Horseshoe High School was the only one that didn't pass. And with that being our high school and our secondary school, that's going to be our first priority this year. So we have 2 different quotes, one from Day Wireless and one from AWS. They're within $1,700 a piece. And so we went to the secondary scoring of that since it's such a small gap on who we felt would be a better partner for our district, who knows and understands our district, who lets change orders in the future. And so what we're looking at is recommending Day Wireless to do the cell and DAS coverage at Four-Stroke High School utilizing bond funds for $247,995.41.
Oh, it was like a $300 difference.
It's a $1,700 difference by the time we consider the package deal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm excited that there's gonna be service in the high school.
That would be a change.
And this is only Verizon and AT&T.
Fine with me, but they need it, so that's good. Any questions?
Nope.
Right, Nate agrees to, all the students will be united about that one as well. Okay, I move to approve the cell and DAS upgrades to Four-Stroke High School utilizing bond funds for Day Wireless for $247,995.41.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Security systems convergence.
Right. So this is also part of the safety and security committee that we've been meeting. We've spent a lot of time going through what our current systems are. Right now, we have RS2 for security and then Milestone for cameras. After looking at what our options are and demoing other services, we are looking at converting to Genetec. What that does is gives us one platform that's really user-friendly for our building administrators, for secretaries, for district staff, for maintenance and facilities to be able to set door schedules, investigate issues, look at camera, things that have happened. So it's one full integrated system.
Same cameras, same wire, same hard equipment?
All of the equipment would stay the same, except we've gone through and assessed each camera and we have a variety. So some of it will get upgraded depending on what its current age is.
Okay.
So that will be another project that we'll be bringing to the board. This is just the conversion from RS2 and Milestone to Genetec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, I move to approve the purchase agreement with Convergent to complete the security systems conversion to Genetec for $326,500 utilizing bond funds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. All right, Cam, you're up. Contracted staffing services, speech language development.
Here again, talking about staffing. We had a resignation of a 0.5 speech language pathologist. She's agreed to stay with us through the break, so that's great. We also have the need for another 0.5 because we have additional need for our elementary buildings. So we posted a 1.0 position and it's been posted for over a month. In fact, we have our SLP position open pretty much the entire year and no one applied for it. So we're asking to convert the FT that we have budgeted into contracted services, which would be $80,000 for the remainder of this school year. And that would be with a qualified contracted service agency.
Any questions about that? I don't think so.
Oh, wait a minute.
minute.
Oh, I have a question. Is that come out of the general fund or the special ed fund?
These are general fund positions that have already been budgeted, so it's
Okay.
not an additional.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I move to approve to spend up to $80,000 for a 1.0 full-time employee speech language pathology position that is vacant in student services for the remainder of the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Kim again, same thing, different position.
Different position, yeah. We have a resignation for one of our specialized classrooms. It's a 1.0 special education teacher. He's agreed to stay for a little bit, which is great. But we've also had the position open and haven't had any applicants to date. We plan on keeping that position open because it is a hard to fill position. We would like to request $80,640 to be converted out of our FTE to cover our contract service for the rest of the year.
Any questions? Okay, I move to approve to spend up to $80,640 for a 1.0 full-time employee special education teacher position that is vacant in student services for the remainder of the 2023-2024 school year. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. You're good. Kim. Okay, and now Superintendent Parker will be talking to us about integrated guidance grant agreement.
So this is, again, one of those boxes that we need to check. In the spring, we presented to you our plan for integrated guidance. It was approved and it moved to ODE to look at our plan. We added to it the long-range targets. And then it went to basically the Department of Justice, and it sat there between May and I think we got it last week, so November. They made no changes to it. It sat there for 5 months. They made no changes, no recommendations. It's exactly the same. This is the actual grant agreement that you have here. But I'm presenting it to you. There is an action that we need to take to basically approve this grant agreement. And then we're off and rolling. Like I said, they made 0 changes to it. So
This took a lot of time.
this took an incredible amount of time. I mean, hundreds of staff hours to do this piece. So I'm still, yeah. The money is impactful. So it's like, we're gonna have to do this because we have, again, 50 in the student investment account alone and to the high school success. I don't know how many we have in that one, but these grants are hugely impactful, but the reporting and all the rest of this is just becoming quite a challenge.
Right.
I can answer any questions you have. Okay.
I move that approve the integrated guidance grant agreement as.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Future action items. Elena is gonna come to talk to us about the early literacy grant application update. Hi.
Okay, so, yeah, we can talk a little bit about currently what we're doing for literacy, because during September, October, so I'll give you a little bit of update on the work so far, and then how that is. Okay, so what I'm gonna share tonight is an alignment with our strategic plan goal 1, instruction and learning. Specifically objective 3, building a multi-tiered system of support framework that ensures students receive rigorous grade level instruction that leads to students' academic growth and literacy. So just here's some of the work that we've been doing so far with teachers, with principals in buildings. So first, literacy administrator and teacher professional learning. So we have currently, I believe I previously mentioned, we have 1 teacher cohort, we have 1 coaches cohort, and we have 1 administrative letters cohort. So we have 3 cohorts going so far. We have some partnership with ESD, who's funding some of that, and some of that is from our district funds. In the spring, we're hoping to start a 2nd teacher cohort for letters, a specifically pre-K early literacy letters cohort, and then also another round for administrators who are interested in starting letters. And so those will be ongoing cohorts that will then lead into next year as well. And as far as work we're doing within universal literacy instruction and professional development, we have been working closely with our principals and teachers around how to use the materials and curriculum instructional practices for core and for small group. We've had a lot of conversations specifically around literacy practices and bi-literacy practices. With the curriculum, we have a lot of, there's a lot of pros to the curriculum, but there's a lot of newness. And so really trying to understand how to use that in a bi-literacy model has been challenging. So we're really trying to work through how to provide some professional learning for that. And also, for literacy instruction, we're also talking about how we can better monitor and oversee implementation of literacy practice and of the actual curriculum materials themselves. As far as the leadership team, we are in current development of hopefully a long-term literacy leadership team that would convene teachers and classified staff from all buildings that would come together to really talk about the development and improvement of our literacy program, the initiatives that hopefully are sustainable long-term. Also, we would ideally like some building leadership that represents expertise in the science of reading and letters and in literacy programs in general. So we are currently in development of that, and that will start this late winter and then run for the rest of the year. But that would be a team that we would want ongoing, and that would then work with their buildings to bring back that learning, that professional development to their staff. So they're kind of like building reps or building leaders as well. Within assessment, we are really talking through the fidelity of the assessment system. It's brand new. So we're like initial stages of implementing that and talking through what does it look like for English and Spanish? How can we make sure that we are giving the assessment? There's not a lot of variability among buildings with how the assessment is given or how we're looking at the data and using the data. So right now we're talking through a lot of the challenges and also successes, and then trying to use that information to then formulate a long-term implementation plan for the assessment program itself. Also, a big part of that is trying to figure out how to train in a really timely fashion those that are administering the assessment and reading the data, because we have a lot of turnover in new people that are giving the assessments. So that's an added challenge that we have to really work through, so that it's not we're going to train you after you've been hired and after you're giving it, but as an onboarding, a sustainable onboarding process for the assessment. Database decision-making, really what we're looking for here too is to improve our 120% meetings so that they better align to our goals within literacy. And then within intervention and instruction, we're asking the question, how can we build intervention time into our master schedules more efficiently and effectively? And also, what interventions will we continue to use, and are our current ones meeting our needs? So we have what we feel like a pretty good foundation for our English interventions, but our Spanish interventions are still challenging to find high quality interventions. And it's very difficult to find time in the master schedule in the language schools for Spanish interventions. So there are some of the challenges that we're working through this year with teachers and administrators and district staff. I'm going to give you a more detailed plan in January about kind of like our long-term vision for literacies. So that was just a brief rundown. Any questions about current work?
Hold on, Kate might have a question.
Kate, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so in regards to the early literacy success grant, so here is our committee makeups. We asked all staff to participate if interested, and so we did have teachers from Harvey Clark, Cornelius, Fernhill, Eccleshire, Joseph Gale participate in the committee. It was a range of teachers, specialists, counselors, and administrators. We didn't have Tom McCall on there because the grant is really a K4 grant at the highest level. It's really most specifically K2. So that's why you don't see Tom McCall there. So the purpose of the committee was to identify priorities that will be used to guide actions and to improve literacy performance. Okay, the process that we went through, we met a number of times, and we first looked at our district-wide data, which our whole buildings had only seen their own data, but they hadn't seen other buildings' data or district data, which was really impactful, I think, because they were able to see we're all kind of in the same place. And there's a lot of preconceived notions about like, well, our building is there, but your building is there, or, and it kind of was really interesting to see that district-wide view. So we looked at some data. We then did a needs analysis of basically what is our current literacy program at all levels. And then teachers came together and arranged priorities of what we need to do as next steps in order to improve literacy for our kids. So these are the areas that they came up with. They looked at about, I would say 65 areas within literacy improvement and within our generally, like ideally what you would want to have within a literacy program. And these were the 7 that they finalized on. So I'm going to go kind of in order of, these are the top 7 priorities, but I'm going to go in the order of like least to highest need. So the first one, teachers said, we need more support with how to provide small group instruction. They said we need more training and more PD with the curriculum. We need more support with how to differentiate and scaffold and how to provide acceleration and growth. Within data-based decision-making, the priority request was that schools dedicate sufficient time for grade level and school level teams to analyze the data. So we already have that within 120% needs, but it's challenging when you don't have subs in coverage. And so it's kind of hit or miss, like how well and how much time you can actually look at that data consistently. We also have some of that within PLCs, but we have a varying level of PLC functioning right now. So it's not necessarily hitting the mark there either. Within assessment, teachers said after the initial universal screeners, we need to be better at making plans immediately and development in collaboration with our parents and schools. And then within community and family involvement, teachers said school literacy goals need to be communicated to parents in the community at least twice yearly. And this just kind of was an overwhelming trend in their feedback that we really need to focus on building stronger partnerships with our families around those. So those were kind of the bottom 4, if you will, but still very high needs, but we will go to the top 3 most critical areas that they identified. So within leadership, the teacher said that, and this is when they looked at leadership, this was specifically leadership looking at all people within their building. So all staff, they're considering all staff as leaders, not just like the principal or that district, but us as a building staff. That teachers and administrators make shared leadership and school success a priority, that we need to hold one another accountable and complete tasks effectively and on schedule. That's one of our highest critical areas for improvement. Professional development. Teachers need ongoing job-embedded grade-specific professional development and coaching support on instructional materials and how to use materials at all 3 levels of instruction. So core and then tier 2 and tier 3. And then finally, the third most critical area was we need more support with intervention instruction for students. So all students who are below benchmark need to be receiving interventions daily in addition to tier 1 universal instruction. And that was resounding amongst all of the teachers and all of the groups. And the way that we formulated our groups was each group, every teacher was from a different building. And so because we really wanted to be able to see, is this just an issue like at your building, or is this a widespread district issue? And resoundingly, they all came to the same consensus around these top and priorities. So we felt fairly confident that this is a district-wide, that there's a lot of relevance and it's applicable to all of our buildings. So we have a lot of priorities here, and the grant, like Dave said, is not going to fund all of those priorities. But we do know one that was resoundingly in that top 3 that we would like to apply, that early literacy success grant, along with graded funding from Title I towards reading specialists, K-4. That's one of our proposals. We know that there are many more other priority areas. Some of that is going to be an ongoing budget conversation for spring. A lot of that work will be discussed with this leadership team that comes on board. So basically this committee kind of did the pre-work. We're going to give that pre-work to the literacy leadership team, and we're going to take it from there with my involvement, with a bunch of people's involvement, and really try and plan more long-term. So it's not to say that the other priorities are not going to be supported or not going to be implemented, but specifically the grant, this specific grant, I think makes sense to apply that towards reading specialists before. So questions about the committee priorities or about what we're going to use these grants for?
I have one question just for clarification on the top 3, the leadership piece that they talked about. Can you give an example of like what's coming up around that as far as holding each other accountable? Is it strengthening with the strengthening PLC, or was there difference from building to building on what they were hoping that could be?
When we talk more in depth about that, I made some notes around some anecdotal things that they shared. The team shared that they would really like to see more of a culture of trust amongst themselves within their building, that there was shared understanding and respect amongst staff. There was more personal and group accountability within PLCs, and that there was more intentional planning and work done within the PLCs.
My other question around the coaching support, which was that second one, do you, and aside from the K-4 reading specialist, sorry, the professional development. So taking out the K-4 reading specialists that will come hopefully to this grant, which is a great focus area. Do you see that coaching support? Are you hearing that they're wanting more TOSA time with the TOSA, or more focused time specifically, or what are they saying they would like that to be?
Kind of tell me about it. Yeah. Definitely more. The grade specific PD has come out so much that, when we do we have these very small windows to get everyone in the same room for PD. And so we have to do it to a broad audience. And so it's harder to do more grade specific PD. So that has come out loud and clear that the PD is good. We're learning a lot. Science of reading, that's great. Like all this, we get a lot of good feedback around that. But specifically, I'm a kindergarten teacher. I need support understanding how to use the materials and resources. And I need to have some further coaching with my instructional strategies or with just planning in general. And that it's hard to get that specific when you have K-4 in the room, for 2 or 3 hours on a PD day. And you're splitting it with other people too throughout the day. So that depth and complexity of professional learning support has been loud and clear that teachers are asking for. They also ask for, I think I already said it, more planning time with coaching support. So more one-on-one, show me how to do it, apply it. More modeling and peer observations, and more opportunities for advanced education. So teachers also were asking for, can we continue to get letters opportunities? Can we get some possibly opportunities for reading endorsement and some district support for reading endorsements and things of that nature? So just trying to think of some things outside of just the general day-to-day that helps them advance with their knowledge too.
Tom McCall, we are thinking about that, correct? It's just that we're presenting today about the early literacy, but we do have thoughts about how to.
Yeah, so we have title funds that we're looking to grade, and so the goal is that we have reading expertise in all buildings, pre-K 6. That's our initial starting point. For the grant itself specifically, we can only put that towards K-4 schools, right? But that does not mean that Tom will won't see that. The part will just look at using that differently and looking at other grant funds to be able to supplement that work.
I have a question for you. I have a couple questions. So when you talk about tier 1 universal instruction for kids, students below benchmark, are you going to tease out those kids that are dyslexic? Because they'll need a different kind of an intervention.
Well, are you referring to tier 1? Or are you referring to tier 2 or tier 3? Because those are different things, right? So core would be what we're doing for all kids, including kids with dyslexia. And then also looking at this intervention piece here would be looking at kids that fall into tier 2, 3. And if those kids who have dyslexia fall in those tiers, they would be receiving that intervention. The goal would be, because we are having that reading expertise, that those would be the ones that those people would be serving those students outside of core. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking, how are you identifying those kids that are below benchmark that are dyslexic?
We're using the data and the screeners.
Yeah. Yes, but you know, pretty much the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade teachers already know when kids are really below. And you know, my big concern is that we're retaining students because we're waiting until they get to tier 2 and tier 3 before they actually get the individualized instruction that they need.
Well, I would say for kindergarten, excuse me, we don't formally intervene until winter. But you're right, there are some kids that pop up much earlier than winter, that it's just, we just know that there's something more going on. And so after those preventative reading screeners, after we see that data, there is opportunity to start interventions before necessarily, like before what you're referring to, Kate, it's too late. But we don't necessarily track dyslexia unless parents, or unless we're somehow notified that a student has dyslexia. Our core provides the explicit systematic instruction and the phonics skills pieces that kids specifically with dyslexia need in their core. But I would say there's going to be a combination of both core instruction and using the data to identify interventions. And I agree with you, the earlier we can do it, the better. So I think that's part of getting a reading specialist, interventionist, whatever we're going to call it, in each building so they can act. Sorry, I'm like talking to the, I know I was talking about it. And everyone, yeah. So that we can do a better job of identifying that earlier and then just making sure that we've got our ducks in a row with getting kids what they need sooner.
The second question I have for you is, have you defined the roles, responsibilities for the reading specialist?
Not yet, but we're going to start working on that now that the committee put forth this proposed action step. I do know that in every conversation I've had, the #1 priority has been is that these reading teachers, specialists, that their primary goal is student contact, so student direct instruction. So the less we can do to have them like coordinating paper work, like those kind of oversight things, there's other ways that we can have people assume those responsibilities and still work closely with the reading specialist. But our main goal with the reading specialist is that they work with our kids that have the highest need and they work with them throughout the day. And that's their main goal, is student direct instruction.
Under this grant, are you also looking at incorporating or employing a certified librarian K-4 that would be in I talked to Arturo about this, and I'm wondering if you guys are pursuing it, of having a certified librarian K-4 in a building, but would support all the other elementary schools, their library programs, and access?
That came up, actually in our committee work. One of the suggested action items for one of the lesser priority needs was that we have a certified librarian, to serve all elementary schools, to not just coordinate library services, but really to focus on digital literacy and digital citizenship. It's such a growing need for our students. We have AI, that's here, and they need to be able to know how to navigate the world after high school. And so that didn't come out. We're not gonna have enough in the grant to specifically say the grant is going towards that, Kate, but that is a priority that is on the table that we want to look at possibly whether or not we can budget for that in the future. We know that's a need and that's been identified in the committee work.
Yeah, and I would just also, because we've been having this conversation and we do have problems across the district. And so we are looking at how do we create a position probably in a school and works with the other folks, but there is an issue here around having a certified librarian. So Kate, just so that you know that conversation is still happening. Like I said, there's probably not going to be the early literacy funds, but it'll have to be some other graded funds that we look at.
Yeah, I think even just doing the onboarding for the aides that are hired to work in the libraries would go like a long way. Because we hire these people and then we don't give them any training. And I'm not really sure what they're doing in the library. I don't think they know either.
Well,
Anything else, Kate?
I just want to say I am 110% in support of having a certified librarian through K through 4. Of course, you've all heard me say this over and over again. So thank you very much for your report.
Shocking, Kate. Really shocking.
This is like a surprise on all of our favors. Okay, at this time, we are going to talk about future board things. Is there anything that any board members would like to see on a future meeting or agenda or discuss? Chrissy?
I do have one more thing. Why not? Because this is the future time. So
This is your time. This is your
okay.
time.
One of the things, and it came up tonight about communication, I'm just wondering if it might be something for the board to be able to talk about how we as a board might complement and supplement communication around a couple things. One of the things I think David Warner's working on is starting to put out on socials, which I'm not on, but that our meetings are happening. Here's the top 2 things that are happening. Here's how you can participate in the meeting. Here's what to do, like Beaverton does. If you need a translator, here's who you contact. So trying to be a little bit more out there to the community to be able to say this is going on. But as a board, I think there's opportunities for us to talk about what does that outreach look like, even as far as like the IA recruiting, as board members. I mean, could we potentially coordinate ourselves at a couple events to promote that work that needs to be done and support the staff? And then tonight, I mean, just things like around the reading, communication for families, is there a role for the board just as elected leaders, or we're liaisons to the community, besides just at this board meeting and the individual work that we do? Because we saw a lot of good brainstorming happening there. Could there be an opportunity, work session for us to talk about increasing outreach efforts, even if it was just kind of landed in a couple of opportunities?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was one of the main things that came up in the strategic plan was our communications and our community involvement. And I think that we definitely have a role in that too. Just about do you want to have a work session on it or?
No, I just added.
We're just saying.
This. I mean,
I think that's better with a work session than a presentation. So if that is the conversation you want to have, then I think we structure some kind of conversation around it.
well, and there's just no time. I mean, people out there probably know this, but there is no time. We never can just sit as a board and talk without public noticing a coffee, or, which can happen, but then that requires staff and support. So it's very difficult to engage together unless we have a chance to plan together. And if we're not doing another retreat for a while, but our work session, I would say that's maybe low down. There's plenty of other work session things, but just maybe add it to the list.
Is David Warner sending out social media about board meetings?
No, Chrissy asked him to start doing so. Or to kind of get it going on, maybe advertise on
So-
the district webpage, or on the district Facebook page.
Yeah, just
Saying board meeting Monday, these are a couple of topics.
there's a link to the agenda and then,
So it's a request, we have to get it started.
No,
well,
no.
not today, but
Brad's like, I didn't see it. Is
But
that what
that's
you're
fine.
doing?
I just was bringing up that is
Okay,
hopefully
Okay.
as part of,
okay, I didn't follow.
like, well, that's not, it's pretty usual, it's hard.
So what I heard though is that I'll work with Kathy and we'll kind of see where we can fit something in here around, again, board communication, networking with, the community. Is that, okay?
It's a good-
Yeah, and I would say like, maybe what Christy's saying too, is like in some of the schools, like when you're having an event, like if you want Christy or me or something, like maybe we can take turns going to the choir thing and having a table saying, the site sign up this up.
Well,
Is that
I
kind of what you're
understand
saying?
like that, like as a board member, we have to go to every site to figure out like what's going on when, so this calendar is super helpful, but like schools, I mean, feel free if there's something going on in your school and you need someone to maybe pop in and serve cookies or whatever, you know, we need that invite as well. I mean, we would be willing to.
And then I would say, Christy, just keep doing what you're doing when you go to Fred Meyer's, just tell the people there. We're hiring,
Someone at the gas station the other day.
we're hiring, just keep spreading the word. All of them sign up.
As long as we're.
Nobody wants to go to cookies from you, like the grumpy old guy.
It's true.
Okay, anything else? No? Kate, are you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
All right, meeting's adjourned, 8:10.